I'm Grin, and welcome back to Book Club. The Wizard of Oz has always been one of my favourite stories. I've seen it on stage 3 or possibly 4 times, and I've watched the movie more times than I can count. And so when I saw the original story, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, for sale in a $2 bin, I figured I had to pick it up and finally give it a read. It's been on my list for an extremely long time, and so I'm very glad I finally got a chance to read it. The story is, in many aspects, vastly different than the story of the Wizard of Oz that I've become used to, because of course the movie is based on the stage play, which is based on the novel, and therefore the famous musical that most of us are familiar with is twice removed from the original source material. And indeed, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz is, I believe these days at least, one of those stories which is far more known for its film adaptation rather than the original story. I think almost all of us were probably introduced to the story through the musical because it is such a work of art. But we're not here to talk about that today, we're here to talk about The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, the original novel, so let's get down to it. Firstly, the story is, I feel, slightly less streamlined than that of the stage adaptation and film adaptation, although I think that's probably because I went in with the preconception of the movie and felt that some sections were unnecessary additions, which I don't think I would have felt if I had read the novel before watching the movie. It's just that I'm used to one version of it, and I don't think you can or should hold that against the novel. As far as the story's format goes, it's very much your standard guitar story, pretty much ticking all the boxes as it goes along, complete with your magical gift and your trials and tribulations, although the ending is definitely more upbeat than most of which you would find in the classical world. It also borrows a lot of fairy tale elements, which means that with that combined with the fact that it's also got a lot of classical influence in it, there's quite a lot of repetition throughout the novel. It can drag a little bit if you're not used to it, and even for me who is, I did find it to be occasionally a bit tedious when you're having essentially the same sentence said one after another for each of the individual 4 characters. It's not really a knock on the author though, it's just a particular style that you either enjoy or you don't. I often do, but sometimes don't. And even reading The Odyssey, which is one of my favourite stories, I did occasionally get tired of the repetition, so if anything I suppose that means that Frank Baum completely nailed the emulation of the style, and if you're into that style you'll enjoy it, if you're not you won't. I think if you're a child you'll probably very much enjoy it, but as someone who's spent far too much time reading classical texts, I suppose I can sometimes get tired of the tropes in them. If you do love The Wizard of Oz, you'll probably find you enjoy this novel, as it's basically The Wizard of Oz, but a lot longer, with several areas going into a lot further depths and the adventure and journey just being more drawn out. They spend a lot more time in the Wicked Witch's kingdom than they do in the movie, and also the novel doesn't immediately end after their return to Oz following the witch's defeat, as there's still one more adventure to be had. As far as how well it's dated, I think it definitely still holds up pretty well, probably not quite as well as the movie, and there's definitely some things in it that are a bit strange and out of place. For instance, in a weird moment of contradiction, only a little bit after them saying that they don't want to kill the Wicked Witch of the West, and they don't want to kill anything, the Tin Man beheads 40 wolves, which is definitely violent, and I think probably going against their claim that they don't want to kill anything, and while it's not exactly described in gory detail, and almost certainly not the most violent thing that kids have available to them these days, I definitely didn't expect it. I can't really imagine the Tin Man from the movie pausing between 2 songs to decapitate 40 wolves. It would have probably changed the overall vibe of the film somewhat. Speaking of changes from the film, I was quite surprised that these slippers are not actually ruby slippers in the original novel, but instead silver ones. I feel like I've been lied to my entire life, but I'm sure I'll move on. And one thing I found absolutely fascinating is the first chapter that describes Kansas is actually described as everything being grey, and then when they go into the land of Oz, everything is bright and colourful, which I thought was interesting, because the use of switching from sepia tone to colours in the movie has always been one of my favourite uses of colours in any movie at all ever, and it's interesting that it's actually sticking extremely close to the source material. And so, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. It's very much a kid's novel. If you're an adult, you'll probably find it a bit slow and tedious in areas. If you've got a kid, maybe read it to them, or just give it to them themselves to read. I definitely enjoyed it as some light reading, although I think if I probably wasn't so into the movie and the plays, I wouldn't have enjoyed it quite so much. So if you've seen the movie and love it, then I suppose maybe check out the original source material as a curiosity, and if you've not seen the movie, what are you doing with your life? Go watch The Wizard of Oz. And with all of that said and done, as always, thanks for watching, and until next time, I have been and still am Grim Grindle.